everyone. All new this morning, hate crimes are on the rise, not just across the nation, but right here at home. And the FBI has some new numbers that give us a picture of what we are seeing right here in Missouri. So here's what we know. Take a look. Hate crime incidents in Missouri jumped almost 70% from 2020 to 2021. That is the data from more than 81% of law enforcement agencies in the Show Me state. And most hate crimes were based on race, ethnicity, or ancestry. So joining me now is Jay Greenberg, the Special Agent in charge of St. Louis, with some context behind these numbers. Sir, thank you so much for being here this morning. I know it's early, so really appreciate it.
Good morning, Michelle. Thanks for having me.
Well, I hate to bring you on this topic, but we know that hate crimes are up 70% in Missouri. Huge number, it seems. Is this startling, or is it because there's better reporting, or can both be true?
Definitely both can be true, and unfortunately we're dealing with an epidemic of hate here right now. So we do believe that the numbers have gone up. We know that they've gone up substantially year over year, but what we also hope is happening is that with law enforcement's renewed outreach to all of our vulnerable communities, that we're getting some additional reporting as well, which can of course drive those numbers up.
Sure. Well, what do we know about who is maybe behind hate crimes? Are there any trends, maybe even where they're happening? Can you give us any insight there with some of the numbers?
Sure. So we're still going through the details of all the data that was just made available for 2021. But what we do know is, unfortunately, with this huge rise in the numbers, they are still maintaining the historical norms for sort of how they're broken down, which you went over. Okay. There's a racial bias primarily, then a bias against sexual orientation, then a bias against religion.
Okay, and I think it's really important to mention, because when I was looking at the report, we saw that intimidation seems to be like the #1 crime against a person, right? But these crimes span from not just intimidation, but to rape, to assault, and to murder, right?
That's right. So fortunately, we didn't have any murders in the state of Missouri that were bias motivated, but
okay.
Really a hate crime is just a bias motivated crime. So the predominant number we see are intimidations as well as assaults of various types, and then property crimes. So if you think somebody's house was attacked or a house of worship was attacked, that would be a hate crime that would also involve vandalism or property damage, but with a bias motivation, which would make it a hate crime.
Gotcha. And then how does an incident become a hate crime? Does that come way later in the investigation? Because I'm thinking, like, how many times we've reported on something being a hate crime, we really, I don't think we've had it. But it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right? Because it comes when? At what point in the investigation?
So it can come at any point in the investigation, but what's most typical is there is an immediate call for help from a victim of a crime, usually a property crime or an assault of some type. When police respond and start conducting an investigation, sometimes it takes a while to identify the subject. And usually, by collecting witness statements, looking at other evidence that's there, and then talking to the subject, we realize there was a bias motivation behind that crime, and then we can augment those charges that it will also become a hate crime.
Okay, and I'm going to ask you kind of a personal, professional question. Before you were promoted to St. Louis as a special agent in charge, you were at headquarters working on issues like this, right? Why is it important for the FBI to track hate crimes? And for your job. Why do you like doing it?
Sure. So we've been tracking hate crimes since it was mandated by Congress in 1991. Unfortunately, the numbers here in Missouri this past year, 2021, was the highest we've seen in the nation. And that's why when I was at headquarters, one of the portfolios I oversaw was civil rights, which includes hate crimes. And we saw a real need to put some additional emphasis on there to make sure that we put some advertising dollars behind getting to the public, increasing our outreach, developing deeper partnerships with all of our partners who help us investigate this, and really just getting out there and wearing out our shoe leather to make sure that vulnerable communities feel comfortable reporting to us and that they know how to do so.
Well, I hope you've got good shoes. Final question, how can people make a report to the FBI?
Sure, so anytime you're in physical danger, if you're worried about your safety, call 911. After that, if you believe that you've been the victim of a hate crime or any other kind of crime that may have a federal nexus, feel free to call us at 1-800-CALL-FBI, and we'll respond as well.
Okay, very easy number to remember. Jay Greenberg, thank you so much for being here this morning, and of course, thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you, Michelle.